I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
Not true. That's
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Hopefully, you guys had a great weekend. Was it a weekend? I don't even know what it wasn't even a weekend. I don't know what day it was. I wasn't here yesterday. Feels like a weekend to me. I really do feel like today is Monday morning. Good morning, Allison. I don't know what day it is. I have been working I don't know, from the time I wake up in the morning till about midnight every single day. So forgive me for thinking today's Monday. What day is today? Wednesday? I think, yeah, that's right. Today's Wednesday because Colonel Joe Adams is going to join us today. I think I need a vacation, don't I? My brain is completely fried. Yes, today is Wednesday. Colonel Joe Adams is going to join us this morning from the Washington Guard. Cannot wait to talk to him. Lots to talk about again today, as usual. So much going on. Allison, you know what I'm talking about. So much going on in the world. It never ends. It just never ends. And of course, you probably watched the presidential address last night, as did I. I actually found some time to kind of break away a little bit. I worked and typed, while I watched it, but I did watch it. And, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, because I'm sure all of you, if not most of you, of course, have seen it as well. You know, the thing that stands out the most, besides, of course, Donald Trump taking a couple pot shots at some of the Democrats, including, of course, Pocahontas, but was the fact that Democrats didn't stand up for anything, not even the things that any decent human would stand up for. It was really kind of heartbreaking, really, to know that we've really gone that far to where congressional Democrats can stand there, these senators and members of of Congress. It just doesn't make any sense to me where Donald Trump can talk about a young boy who fought brain cancer and always wanted to be a police officer, and these people just sit there stone faced. They talk about Lake and Riley. They sit there stone faced. They talk about Corey Compatory from the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting, and then they just sit there stone faced. They just don't care. I really do think if it's a conservative life, that life doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean anything at all. It's really disturbing, in my opinion. Oh man. Good morning, Mr. Parnell. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Tammy, Jerry, Hoover. Good morning, Phyllis. And yes, Phyllis, I am also so ashamed of the Democrats in Congress. And Trump's approval ratings were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. 76% polling all around, even with CNN, even with CNN. He had almost a 69% approval rating, even on CNN. I mean, that goes to show, you know what? Americans do care about these issues. We care about the southern border, not just conservatives. We care about the southern border. We care about law enforcement. We care about wasteful government spending. And these people who represent the Democrats of America, who sat there yesterday stone faced, holding up their little signs and trying to overtalk Donald Trump. They're just a disgrace to their party. I really don't think they represent the majority of Democrats, not Democrat Americans. I really don't. I think that, and this is nothing new. I think a long time ago, we saw the Democrat Party changing. And we know that these people sitting in those seats, these people that, they are only standing up, making a scene because they're getting kickbacks. It is the only reason why. Do you think Nancy Pelosi and Elizabeth Warren and some of these other people really, really, really want to see boys and little girls' bathrooms? Or do you really think they want to see men playing women's sports and they think that's okay? They all voted to include men in women's sports. That's what they did. That's a huge violation against women. We have a man coming up getting ready to compete in what, the Miss USA pageant And do you really think any of these people really would die on that hill? No, they wouldn't. They're doing it for money, and that's it. It's all about the money. That's all it is. Even Joe Biden, I don't think Joe Biden cared about some of these issues that he championed the entire time he was in office. It was about kickbacks. That's all it was. Just a big bunch of kickbacks. Good morning, Georgia. Allison says the Democrat Party is full of rage and hate when they cannot clap in solidarity for parents grieving for murdered family member, slain police officer, sick child. This is not a pathway to bipartisanship. No, it's not. Good morning, Dottie. They looked programmed and operated in lockstep. They were. I played that little video clip at the very beginning of the show for anyone who's clicked in a couple minutes later. That was exactly that. By the way, they were absolutely in unison in that video. And Elon Musk made a statement yesterday on X, and he said, whoever created that clip, whoever told them to say these things, I want to know who it is. And he said, the first person who gives me the answer, I will buy them a Cybertruck. And of course, Cory Booker, that communist, piped in. He said, oh, it was me. Save the truck. I don't want it. It was me. Good morning, Ruth. And so, it's just insane. I don't get it. I really just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't think these people, I don't feel like Republicans in Congress represent me, quite honestly. Even though they stood there and they clapped and they seem like they're all on board with Donald Trump, they had their share of kickbacks too. They definitely had their share of kickbacks. There might be a slight handful that I feel like represent me, very slim. And Democrats, even more so, they don't represent the general Democratic population, because I don't think that most Democrats would feel the same way they do about a lot of these policies, because ultimately we as Americans, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on politically, what do we want? We all want peace. We all want prosperity. We want our families to be safe. We want to be able to make enough money to support ourselves and our families. And Democrats, that's the opposite of what they want. They want you to work so you can support them. It's not about supporting yourself. They want you to work so you can support them. And Republicans too. I'm not going to leave Republicans out of that equation, but I think we all saw that shift with the Democrat Party, a few years ago with Bernie Sanders, and how things just moved so far to the left under Obama, to where at one point these policies that Democrats now support were only the policies that the people on the far 2% of fringe left supported. Now, all of a sudden, that's taken center stage with Democrats. And, my grandfather, my grandmother, they were lifelong Teamsters, Democrats. My grandpa, man, if he saw what the Democrat Party has become, oh my gosh, I wish that he was here to talk about it, because I would love to hear, what he had to say. And it's crazy. Karen says Democrats act like spoiled little babies. They are spoiled little babies. Good morning, Kimberly. How can true blue Democrats not be ashamed and embarrassed by these people? I don't understand. A couple of them would stand up and clap over a couple of things, but for the most part, here they voted to keep again men and women's sports, little boys and girls locker rooms, and then they have the nerve to wear pink. It's clearly just a brain disconnect. We are never going to be on the same level as these people. And I'm not talking about Democrats that we know, they're more like us. I'm talking about these Democrats who represent the Democrat Party. These people are lost. All we can do is pray for their souls, because, man, they are lost. Lori, honest question, because I truly don't know. Do Republicans stand when a Democrat president does his speeches, regardless of the heart-wrenching stories? Lori, I don't know. That is a good question. I sure hope so. I hope they stand it. But let's go back to Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden didn't give the same type of address because he just wasn't capable of it. Yes, he gave speeches. It wasn't quite the same. And his policies, I'm sure they didn't stand for his policies. I don't recall him having any of these heartfelt moments during his congressional speeches to the American people, speeches to Congress. Donald Trump brought people in to tell these stories, so I don't recall Joe Biden ever doing that or presidents before him doing that. So maybe there just wasn't the opportunity there to do so. But I don't know. But either way, I don't feel like Republicans in Congress or Democrats in Congress represent the majority of us, because I think they on both sides, they're all just playing a game. They're all just playing a game. They all, cater to the lobbyists. The lobbyists give them money, kickbacks, blah, blah, blah. None of them are working for us. Even some of the better ones, I even question them. I'm ready to just start all over, get rid of them all, start all over. Good morning, Robert. And let's see here, Jeffrey, they absolutely do, because we are caring humans, not soulless lockstep scum. Good point on that one. And Allison says, Democrat women wore pink, signaling they stand for women. Did they stand for a young girl seriously injured playing volleyball against transgenders? Of course they didn't. And those people wearing pink, those people don't care about transgender issues. They absolutely do not. What they care about is the money that lines their pocket, that lobbyists pay them from groups that do support transgenders in in sports. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. It is all about the money. And that's what we've got to be sick of. We've always known it was all about the money, but it really is. Karen says, Nancy looked so uneasy in her seat. The funniest comment I think I read all night when I was looking through various social media posts was somebody had a little video of Nancy Pelosi, and they had this comment, and I feel bad even saying this because I'm not making fun of elderly people, but they said that Nancy Pelosi has reached that age where she just looks like she's constantly chewing something when nothing's there. Because she's always, it always seems like she's got like a piece of coconut in her mouth or something. And it is funny because you do see that happen sometimes with elderly people. And I have no love for Nancy Pelosi. I wish that Donald Trump would have called her out like he did some of the others and talked about her, what was it, 14 million she received from the government for experimental gardening or something. I wish he would have called them out a little bit more. I can't say there was anything that happened in the speech yesterday that was all that mind-blowing to me. And maybe that's because we're always on top of, all of his different policies and, the executive orders and all of everything we're doing here in this country to make us a better people, a better country. So I didn't see any bombshells. He certainly didn't talk about Zelensky and signing any kind of deal with Zelensky. Is that coming? Is it not coming? I don't know. I just don't know. And Mr. Parnot, the Republicans acted the same as the Democrats last night. And I'm not sure what you mean. Republicans stood up and clapped and seemed like they cared, but maybe it's an act too with some of them, just because again they're also probably sitting back thinking, man, we've got to support Donald Trump, but at the same time we're also upset we're not getting our kickbacks, because I promise you, if you saw the list of kickbacks, it's not just Democrats. It's not just, there's no way. The list would be just as full as Republicans as it is Democrats. So don't think those people, just because they stand up and chant USA, USA, and, act like they support Donald Trump, do not think that those people are on our side, because they're not. Because you know what? Remember under Biden's term, when we knew that Biden was incompetent, when we knew he was passing all of these ridiculous executive orders that harmed Americans, what did Republicans in Congress do? Outside of the Freedom Caucus, a couple of those folks, they didn't do a darn thing. They didn't stand up and speak for us. They didn't do anything at all. They didn't do anything to help the J6ers. Those people did nothing. And they definitely didn't come out against Joe Biden. Why? Because they were getting paid just the same as Democrats. Don't think those people are on our side, because they're not. Oh, good morning, Joe Fry. Robert, it's not about the money. It's about the amount. You mean the amount of money? How much money they're getting? Yeah, they're getting a lot of money. Your money. They're getting a lot of your money. And Mr. Parnell, when Biden was in office, the Republicans, oh, I see. Oh, the Republicans acted out and disrespectful. Yeah, I'd like to go back and see one of those speeches. Now, I didn't watch many of Biden's speeches because I couldn't stand to see him speak. Allison, the Democrats brought shame to their party last night. Yes, they did. But you know what? Things are turning around. Things are turning around. We've got a lot of good stuff going on in this country. I don't know if we'll ever have that peace deal with Ukraine. And the reason why is because Zelensky has said so many times Seriously, if you gave me money for every time Zelensky said, I'm ready now to talk about peace. I mean, it's been well over 24 times since this war broke out between Russia and Ukraine, where he'll say, "Oh, I'm ready to discuss peace. Let's talk." Nothing happens. They come to the table, they try to make a deal, they present a deal to him. Nope. He doesn't want to talk to Putin. He doesn't want to do anything with diplomacy. He doesn't want to give Russia any concessions at all. He only wants all of the land back that Russia has ceded. He wants to become a member of NATO, and that he's never going to, I don't think, agree. Now, he might feel pressure to agree because he knows potentially his life is on the line. Because I still think he's going to end up going to France. I said that a couple weeks ago. I still do believe that. I still think they're going to replace him and he's going to have to go to France and live out the rest of his life. And we'll see. I think we'll see that playing out. In Canada is very upset with us right now. Very upset. and I hate it for my Canadian friends, but they're wanting to, and we're imposing, of course, these tariffs on Canada. I've got a list here, as a matter of fact. I didn't really prepare any notes today. If you guys can see my notebook, you'll see there's like two things written on it because the main things I want to talk about today, these tariffs. We're going to talk about this very quickly. We're going to talk to Colonel Joe Adams about whatever is on his mind. I want to know what's on his mind. And I also do hope that we talk to him about the full-scale military actions against Mexico, which we are preparing for. So we're going to get into that a little bit, see what he thinks about maybe this deal with Russia. I'm very curious if Colonel Adams sees what I see, and that the rift between the United States and Europe is growing by the day. By the day, we're hearing the EU, Ursula van der Leyen, talking about rearming all of Western Europe. And who do you think they're doing that for? It's against us. It's not for Russia. That's against the United States. And talking about how freedom of speech is a virus, that's also against us because we're the ones who want free speech, right? And then what about the uprisings that are going to take place? Just mark my words, mark my words on this. I will take full responsibility for saying this if it doesn't happen, but I think it will happen. There's going to be uprisings all across Western Europe because these people are seeing what we're doing here in our country and they want to do the same thing. They know they're also being taken advantage of. And we're going to see some uprisings that are going to take place. And eventually, the whole world is going to shift. And we're all going to be a bunch of freedom-loving patriots all across the United States and Western Europe. Now, the Middle East is another story because they just kill people over there when they rise up. Allison, Italy told Zelensky they will not send troops to Ukraine. That is absolutely correct, Allison. Italy, of course, Maloney. I think she has a crush on Elon Musk. If you watch those two interact, I don't ever expect Italy under Prime Minister Maloney to ever agree with anything Western Europe says against the United States. She's probably calling Elon Musk, giving him some private information. And so listen to this. When people talk about tariffs with Canada, people are freaking out because they're like, oh my God, we can't tariff Canada and, we're tariffing China. Well, I'll tell you what, the biggest thing that's going to happen with all these tariffs against China is we're going to realize how much of our product in the United States is actually made in China. I mean, Walmart, they might as well shutter their doors, right? Because everything they buy, all made in China, all of it. Bass Pro, I love Bass Pro. Everything Bass Pro sells, all made in China. It's easy to say, go buy American, we'll be fine. We just have to buy American. Good luck finding something made in America. Good luck with that. That's going to change under Donald Trump because he's offering a lot of companies that want to move back to the United States, and they are taking him up on those offers. List of companies grow that come back into the United States to avoid these tariffs. And it might be a painful process if you buy a lot of products from China, and we all do, because pretty much everything you buy comes from China. Remember during COVID when all those international shipments, were kind of stuck because they had to go through all these extra COVID regulations, and there were shortages of televisions, remember, electronics, some toilet paper, all this different stuff, because medications, medical supplies, because it all comes from China. Chip Price, good morning. Did you see Elon found something so bad he's afraid for his life? I did see that. Elon Musk stated to, I think it was Joe Rogan, that if he really went after the corruption to the full extent, that they would kill him. He did say that they would kill him. His life would be at stake because there's so much corruption going on, and there are still some very powerful forces that run the deep state, and they absolutely would kill him if he uncovered everything. Have you noticed Obama's name hasn't been mentioned at all? Not at all. And there's a reason why Obama's name has not been mentioned in any of the corruption, because if they talk about Obama, he will lose his life. I got chills even saying that. So with Canada and these tariffs, this is what Canada, the tariffs Canada already imposes on the United States. Already, prior to Trump saying he wants to impose this 25% tax against Canada, this is what they already tariff the United States. Dairy products, mostly milk, 270%, cheese, 245%, butter, 298%, poultry, 238%, eggs, 163%, barley 160%, wheat 94%, sugar 265%, peanut butter 295%, rice 150%, vegetables 100%, fish products 100%, lumber 20%, shoes 30%, cocoa 30%, metals 25%, wool 30%, tobacco 100%. So these are already tariffs that Canada imposes upon the United States prior to Donald Trump saying he wants to impose these 25% tax tariffs against Canada. Well, how is Canada reacting? Some of you, I'm not going to play it because we don't have time, but some of you probably saw some of the speeches coming out of Canada. Oh, they're going to cut off our electric supply. They need to make sure that we feel it. We need to feel it. I have countless videos of stores removing American liquor from their shelves, and they're saying, don't go to Florida. If you're Canadian, don't go to Florida, don't visit Florida, don't go to the United States for vacation. But yet, these are the tariffs they have already imposed on us. If you buy a lot of products from Canada, if you buy a lot of products from Mexico or from China, you might feel it a little bit. You know, the prices might go up a little bit. You might spend a little bit less, buy a little bit less. But I'll tell you what, in the end, it makes us stronger. You're going through a rough patch, maybe, but it will make us stronger in the end of things. Good morning, Sherry. Glenn, remember when all the masks were made in China? Yes, I do. And people were like trading masks, COVID masks, you know, the N95 masks on the black market. They were so hard to find. And not me, I was way ahead of that stuff. As soon as I saw back in October, you know, what was going on in China, my family, I bought like a ton of masks. And then I never ended up using them, so it didn't really matter. Uh, Jay says Canada's mad because Trump is doing the same thing Canada has been doing to goods. Exactly that. You know, Trump's his strategy is reciprocal tariffs. You tariff us, we'll tariff you. You don't tariff us, we won't tariff you. So yes, China's mad. And, you know, they said if we want a tariff war, they'll give us a tariff war or any kind of war. They said for that matter, whatever kind of war we want with China, we'll get it. And the same thing. And in the meantime, again, the growing rift. I hope that Colonel Adams can talk to us a little bit about this. The growing rift between the United States and Europe and Mexico and Canada. It's happening. It had to happen, and it is happening. And what we're seeing happening is the United States, we're lessening the sanctions against Russia. What will happen is I think a lot of other countries will follow our lead, but we are lessening those sanctions against Russia. And Europe is losing their minds. They're losing their minds. They've made some very powerful statements recently about rearming, of course, all of Europe, putting more money into their defense, spending budgets because they're worried. And trust me, it's not Russia they're worried about. They're worried about us because they think that we, under Donald Trump, they know we don't have those same goals. And of course, Donald Trump stopping all aid going into Ukraine was a big blow to Western Europe, and they cannot maintain NATO by themselves. We will withdraw from NATO. There is no doubt in my mind, we absolutely will withdraw from NATO. And when we withdraw from NATO, will NATO collapse? I think it will. We talked about this quite a bit on Monday. I really do think that it will. All right, it's 8 a.m. We're going to be joined here by Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. You know, can't wait to see what Colonel Adams has to say because things are crazy in our world right now. Good morning, Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. How are you doing on this lovely Wednesday morning. And Colonel Adams, you might laugh. I thought it was Monday when I started the show this morning. I was telling everybody I hope they had a good weekend. I'm losing my mind myself.
I do the same thing. As far as a beautiful day, where I'm sitting, we're in the middle of a snowstorm out here in Franklin County. So
Seriously?
I'll be working inside today. Yeah.
You have
it's
snow?
really coming down.
It's like 60 degrees at my house. That's wild.
Where are you, in Tampa? Did you move to Tampa?
I didn't. I don't know what's going on. I'm maybe an hour and a half from you. That's crazy. I guess the system is coming my way. Colonel Adams, I know that you have a lot on your agenda. Last week, I covered a lot of topics. We didn't get to really cover some of the things on your mind. So we're going to do that today. I want to see how you're doing, first of all, and hopefully talk about the rift growing between the United States and our neighbors. And of course, the folks across the pond, as well as full-scale military operations in the planning against the Mexican cartels. But first of all, how are you doing and what's on your mind?
Well, Donald Trump's dropping little hints about war in Mexico with the cartels. And he used one word even yesterday, but I don't remember what he said, but nobody caught it. Of course, I caught it. And about he's actually psychologically preparing the United States for when we go to war with the cartel. And I see there's some kind of pending litigation between the Mexican government and the United States about, they're going to sue the manufacturers of the weapons manufactured in the United States because they ended up in Mexico, whatever that's about. That's just posturing. But I know everybody, I assume everybody last night watched Donald Trump's performance, and it was amazing. But what the Democrats, to quote Trump, are a bunch of lunatics, and he points at them. They looked like they were pouting like a small child. They looked like they got bitch slapped, and it looked like Donald Trump put them on a timeout. These people need to hire a professional talent agent to change their image, because everything they do, don't they see that they further turn American public against them? I mean, that was just ridiculous. They couldn't get off their hands last night when the little kid who survived cancer got to be a police officer, a Secret Service agent. I mean, that's touching. That was a beautiful moment, and they sat on their hands. So they continue to do the same thing. Now, I thought after the elections, they caught on. Things will change. No, it hasn't changed. It's gotten worse. I listened to that Amy Klobuchar this week do a little press conference, and she's still stuck on it's Donald Trump's fault for the price of eggs.
Of course
that's her platform. And she said corruption now is at an all-time high. Corruption within the government is increased. Where has she been? They're insane. They actually think people believe that stuff.
Yes, now, they do.
The one thing that Donald Trump, President Trump, hinted at when he first got elected and started looking into the corruption and everything, he said that to turn this economy around, and if you remember this, he said at first it's going to be painful. I don't know if people remember that, but I catch little bits and pieces. He warned us ahead of time to correct the mistakes that the government has done with all the corruption in the spending and throwing away the tax dollars. He said to correct a problem like that, at first will be painful. And it is still painful now. And it might get worse before it gets better, the old cliche. But it has to be that way. This damage that the Biden administration did to this country, which is incredible. They've done so much damage. To correct that at first has to be painful because it's a slow process. But they're fine. They're going to do it. The media also barely caught on. The media has destroyed itself. Let me ask you a question. My number one nemesis to the media was a guy named Chuck Todd. Remember him? Where's he at? Where's Chuck Todd?
Haven't
The
seen him.
media, he was the spokesman for anti-Trump and anti-Republican. Where's he at? I don't know where he's probably working at McDonald's. Anyway, but they continue to reload their weapon and shoot themselves in the foot.
Right.
They did it. They did it last night. Last night they thought that was a publicity stunt with those little auction paddles. They just made them look.
They looked petty.
I mean, so when my civilian description job when I left the military, if you look at the bottom of my DD-214, my number one civilian thing that I was supposed to be trained at was media intelligence, media interpretation, and news interpreter. And so I have an ability to look at a scenario and watch people's body language and know what they're up to. But these I don't know who's in charge of the Democratic Party, but it's like they're intending to ruin it further, and they're doing it.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, but disrespectful. And here's a payback. So Justin Trudeau, the guy, that guy in Canada, he did a press conference yesterday or the day before, and he no longer talks about President Donald Trump. He just calls him Donald. So doesn't he? Yeah. Hurt me. He just makes it worse to disrespect him like that. So his new back to Donald Trump is not to call him president, but to call him Donald. Now, how petty is that?
They're the party of petty.
Yeah. They really, what's their platform?
Yeah,
being
pretty
petty.
much.
So anyway.
And not recognizing the truth. I wish that Donald Trump would have doled out a little more accountability to people. I wish he would have called. I really had hoped that he would have stood there and called out every single one of them and read off money that went to them privately. He called out Stacey Abrams, a couple other people, but I really had hoped it would be so much more.
Yeah, I missed that too. He did it for a reason. Everything that President Trump does is for a reason. Hey, who was the ugliest man in the world they kicked out last night?
Al Green from Texas, that guy.
Yeah.
He's a lunatic. How he ever gotten that job, I'll never know.
Is it just me, or is he the ugliest man on the planet? Who would vote for a person like that? People voted for JFK and that guy. He's an idiot. And didn't he sneak back in later on in the I think he ended up back on the Republican side, coming back inside and causing disturbance again.
I don't know. I know that there were disturbances that happened that they didn't show on camera. I don't know who they were or what exactly took place, but there was a group that somehow made their way in. They had these black shirts on that said resist. I don't know what happened, and they didn't show any of it. I saw it in some other clips.
Resist what? What are you resisting?
Resist truth.
Now, because of what they found with all of the bribes and kickbacks. Kickbacks are a big thing. I like to see how they define these kickbacks these people are getting. And I love your comment about Nancy Pelosi's millions of dollars that was given to her for gardening experiments, whatever. So her husband had to plant her in the garden and get rid of her.
She's probably one of the biggest criminals. But Colonel Adams, can you comment on this? Have you noticed not one time is Obama's name ever mentioned? And it brings me back to the comment that I was reading on the comment line that, hey, Elon Musk recently did that interview. I think it was with Joe Rogan, where he said, if I really revealed all the corruption, if I really went after them over this corruption, they would kill me. And then I thought, there's one name missing from the equation, and that's always Obama. And Obama, of course, being the president over Joe Biden when the Biden crime family was stealing, billions, literally in the end, billions of dollars from the American people. So why isn't Obama's name ever mentioned?
Manchurian candidate. If he knew what he was doing. I recently read an interview with one of his classmates when he was in college, and the nobody in the class, the graduation class, a law class, ever saw Obama. He was registered there and graduated there, but he never attended a class ever.
Nope,
And
never.
all these people attended the same classes because they were getting their law degree. Obama never attended one class, yet he graduated.
Who did he teach? He was a teacher. Who was a professor? Who were his students?
Anyways, okay. Here's another thing too. My producer, who always sits back here, named Anna, says that I use the word anyway too often. So she actually thought about setting up some kind of stun device every time I say it, because when I use the word anyway, it's a segue out of either I've talked myself into a corner, I can't divulge any more information, or I segue back off to something else. So anyway, so she actually keeps score of how many times I say anyway.
We all have our words. No worries.
She just said I already said it 5 times. So you guys can keep score and tell me. I don't care.
You just keep you. That's all that matters.
Anyway, good morning, Allison. Hey, I could not believe that 45 senators voted against keeping little boys out of little girls' restrooms and locker rooms. 45 voted against.
That's called kickbacks. That's called lobbyists are paying them for their vote.
How could you look at yourself in the mirror? I mean, and some of these senators are women. I mean, like, again, Amy Klobuchar, she voted against it. I mean, what happened to common sense? I mean, do you really, as a parent, and these people had to have kids and grandchildren, want boys in your granddaughters and daughters' locker rooms and restrooms?
Well, they don't care. Their grandkids probably go to private school.
Well, yeah, but that's insane. The Democratic Party is the party of the insane, or like Donald Trump says, lunatics. I mean, it's just, these are horrible, horrible people. And it's all about, like you said, it's all about the money.
It's all about the money. These people don't care about transgender issues. What they care is that there's plenty of companies that want to fund the money for transgender issues.
The 2 big idiots of the week, in my opinion, was Amy Klobuchar's interview. But I got to talk to you about Danica Patrick. Do you know who she is?
Of course.
She's the female NASCAR driver, Indy driver, right? So somehow she's on TV and does an interview, and she called President Trump a beast, an absolute beast. Now, wait a minute. And I flash back to a time when Richard Petty, who's the legend, the king of NASCAR racing, said that Danica Patrick was the biggest menace in stock car and racing. He's a menace. So she gets on. Now, wait a minute. She has to. Danica got to be famous because she is an oddity, a woman in professional racing, which is a very, very difficult physical sport. Now, one of Donald Trump's biggest backers and biggest support groups is NASCAR. Danica gets on TV and says that he's nothing more than a beast. Now, wait a minute. Her promoters, she sells a lot of racing items. She's a vendor at all these events. I mean, she just lost thousands of dollars because why would she say that? I mean, so she's the idiot. But I love Richard Petty saying that Richard Petty says she's a menace to racing. So I go to the NASCAR race up in Kansas City when it shows up there. So one year I go up there. Now, Richard Petty had just said how big of a menace she is to racing, dangerous. She's in there because she's a woman, she's an oddity, and it can sell a lot of stuff around her. So I go to the NASCAR race in Kansas City, and Danica is racing, and the stock car, the fast class shows up, Danica's in the race, green flag, they hit turn number 1. Now, I understand in NASCAR racing, there's 4 turns. Turn 1, turn 2 coming out, 3 going in, 4 coming out, right, in the straightaway. So knowing that Richard Petty had just called her a menace to racing, I'm excited. I'm in the stands, and the green flag drops, and they take off. Danica Patrick hit the first turn and not only crashed, but took out 10 cars with her. So
Oh,
Richard Petty was right. She's a menace. She's also an idiot. She should run for a Democratic position in office.
yeah, who knows before it's over, she just might. I think Colonel Adams, that a lot of people who feel like they are spokespeople who want to stand on their soapbox because they have followers, they don't understand that we are the majority. They still just don't get it. And I don't know if they'll ever get it. Look at Trump's approval rating right now. Even CNN had to say that I think they had, what was it, a 69% approval rating, even in their instant poll that over Donald Trump's speech last night. Democrats just don't understand that we are the majority. And when they speak out against us, that it really does harm them monetarily. If they're, or if it's an actor or a musician or a race car driver, and then they speak out against Donald Trump and against Republicans, they just don't get that we are the majority. I see it time and time and time again.
They need to hire some talent agents. I mean, they need a facelift. But these people, I thought after the elections things would change and they would finally wake up and say, the majority of people are saying this. They don't care. They're still doing it because
they don't believe
it. I know it.
They don't believe it. They don't believe that we're the majority. They still think they are the majority and that everyone thinks like they do. And they don't understand that they are becoming a far increasing minority, quite honestly, in America. Their party is dwindling very, very quickly. And people are moving over to the other side of the road because most American households, people, that in your own communities, they don't support wasteful government spending. They don't support little boys and little girls, restrooms. They don't support open borders. They just don't get it. There's just such a disconnect.
Unbelievable. They lost people last night because of their performance.
Yes.
They lost people. They really did.
They sure did.
Did he really call that lady Pocahontas last night?
He did. And people kept saying she was furious. She would look like she was laughing, and she didn't seem too upset to me. She's probably used to it by now.
Yeah, I told my producer that she was on the phone talking to the Indian reservations to see how they're viewing Donald Trump's speech. Anyways, try to get an update. I mean, but just some of this stuff is comical, absolutely comical. So the only thing that I can understand is the fact that even though the Democrats know they're making a mistake, know that Donald Trump's in charge, know that everything he's doing is fine, it doesn't matter. And he said this last night, no matter what he does, he could discover the cure for the worst illness in the world. It doesn't matter what good he does. They don't like it, and they go the opposite direction.
And you're right. And Colonel Adams, we're going to find out because our growing partnership with Russia, Russia claims they have a vaccine that treats cancer, and us and our partnership with Russia will involve that particular medication, shot, vaccine, whatever you want to call it, coming over to Americans. And we'll see what happens to it when Democrats see. Maybe we'll finally find that cure we've been looking for 88 years, funding billions of dollars into.
I don't think so, because there's too much money being made for sick people. I mean, there's too much to be made. Big pharma, if we cured all the diseases, big pharma would be out of business. They can't have that.
Well, that's what we're planning on. We're planning on putting them out of business. That's the goal. Let's do it.
I compare that to the guy who invented silent Velcro. You know what Velcro is? The uniform is Velcro, and it makes a noise. Zip. So when I was working in the desert for 12 years with Border Patrol, we weren't allowed, I implemented no Velcro on your uniform, because if you're out there in the desert and you're tracking people, you pull that Velcro and you can hear it a quarter mile away in the desert. No Velcro in our teams. Different with Washington Guard, we use Velcro. So this guy comes up with a solution for silent Velcro. He's a mathematician. Silent Velcro. Because the noise is a matter of physics. When the material separates, makes that ripping sound. He invents silent Velcro. goes to the government, goes to the Pentagon, and said, hey, I can solve all your problems with this Velcro noise. They never found his body. He's gone off the face of the earth. Now, so I compare that to Big Pharma. If Big Pharma if somebody come up with a cure for all these diseases, they'd probably disappear. Oh, so anyway, you mentioned Putin. Here's what Putin is leaving out, because I know what he should be saying, and he doesn't finish this. So this rare earth thing with the United States is a big deal.
Yeah.
It is a super big deal. Why isn't Putin interested in that or talking about it?
About which part? Well,
rare earth.
About the rare earth minerals? Well, Putin's making a deal with Trump. I don't know that he cares that Zelensky makes a deal. And because, right now, Russia's controlling 70% of Ukraine's rare earth minerals.
Yep, my point is, this is a big thing for us. Why isn't Putin talking about it? There's something missing there. He should be talking about that. And he probably is behind closed doors with Trump. But he hasn't said a word that I know of about the rare earth issue. Very
You
suspicious.
mean as far as us making a deal with Zelensky and the rare earth minerals?
Anything. In any way, shape, or form, Putin hasn't even entered into that conversation. And I have to suspect why.
I think the only thing I've heard from Putin in this situation, and that wasn't obviously direct statements from him, it was through Medvedev, his chief spokesperson, has said that, they want peace. They're tired of seeing all these lives lost, and they look forward to a partnership with the United States. And, Russia, they have a situation going on right now where they're trying to diversify their Russian people. They have these special, I don't know what the word for it is, special funds in place where if you're an American and you want to move to Russia, you can move there. They're going to give you certain amounts of a stipend. They're going to help you find a job. They're going to help you find housing. They want Americans to move to Russia. They're looking to diversify. They've got a lot of different things, it seems like, going on over there. I think Putin wants peace. He has said from day one, when he realized, I think, how many people were dying in this war, that he decided we need to find a peaceful solution. But I'll tell you what no one really does talk about, I think we might have talked about it last week, is the race for the rare earth minerals. Ukraine is rich in rare earth minerals, but they are so in that eastern region, the Azov mine and the areas that Russia has already taken very strategically. There are two more areas in Russia that are pretty heavy in in Ukraine, that are heavy with rare earth minerals. Russia is 1 mile from one of those areas. And as these delays continue on Zelensky's part, they make further and further progression towards another, area rich in rare earth minerals. They're only a mile away from it a couple days ago. And there's one other area that's pretty far to the south that they won't be able to reach. So we're dealing with Ukraine, who only has 2%, of their rare earth minerals left. It's crazy. And well, I should say 2% of their lithium left, and 30% of their total rare earth minerals. And we're making it, Donald Trump, as you know, he's a good negotiator. He's making a deal with Russia. He's going to get, a little part of their rare earth minerals. He's making a deal with, Ukraine to get a little bit of their rare earth minerals. I don't think Zelensky's ever going to be ready for peace. I don't.
I didn't fact check this, but the amount of money that Zelensky has acquired since the war started, and some of the numbers are crazy. Hey, Allison, check this out. I was reading the day where Zelensky's making $11 million a month. Is that true?
I believe that
I didn't fact
true.
check this.
I know and when the war started, he had about $44 million, and then it bumped up. $1 billion. Then it bumped up to like 60 something billion. And yes, he is making, I believe it is that much. Was it $11 million a month or 11 billion? I remember the number 11 being in the equation.
11 million. It listed all of his homes and residences and all of his,
including here in the United States.
Yeah, I told you a few weeks ago that he just bought his wife $1 million sports car. Where's she going to drive that at? Huh? Anyway, and they have, residents in Florida also. Anyway, I just couldn't believe $11 million salary. Our president works for free. Our Bush director works for free. So our main people work for free, And this guy is asking for money from the United States and also NATO countries. Gets $11 million salary.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah.
figures. What kind of patriot could take $11 million during wartime?
While
I
his
mean,
people are dying. I mean, horrific deaths.
yeah,
Colonel Adams, I can't tell you how many videos I've seen of these young men and their dying last moments because they have video cameras out, on the battlefield, and they take videos as their troops are passing away. And I just watched one this weekend, and it was absolutely heartbreaking to see this poor young man, probably in his early 20s, laying there dying, giving his last wishes. And while Zelensky, like you said, is just living it
yeah.
up, it's horrific. And Democrats don't see that side of things.
No, because they do the same thing. They do the same thing. I saw Jay commented on the comment line that Big Pharma is the largest cartel in the world. I never thought of it that way, but Jay, you're
But it's
right.
true.
Big Pharma is a cartel because they control all aspects, and a lot of the stuff they do is illegal. Just ask Fauci. So, anyway, hey, you got anything else before I take off?
I do. I have
Yeah.
two big things I want to talk to you about before you head out. I know you probably don't have a ton of time. I want to know, two different things. One is about the fact that Pete Hegseth said that we are preparing for a full-scale military war against the cartels, and number two, the growing rift between the United States and Western Europe, and how, of course, the EU, Ursula von der Leyen said that the Western Europe, they are rearming, they're preparing for war. And I believe that's against us, the United States. Not necessarily they're going to attack us, but I think they're preparing for war against us if that's, in our future plans.
Well, they're up in their ante because they know the United States is not going to be there to help them when they cause World War III. We're not going to get involved in that. We'll stay neutral.
I hope
They
we do.
know. Now they're still preparing for World War III, but that's also political infighting also. Because if Russia shuts off the gas and oil to those countries, they're screwed. The only good thing is they're coming into summertime, so at least they won't be freezing to death. What was the other? What was the other? Oh no!
Pete Hegseth and the full-scale military war against the cartels.
Well, if you go back in your podcast, how many podcasts ago did I say the only way to win this would be to go in? I speak through tactically offense. I'm not emotional about things. I said if we're going to be a success, we have to go inside Mexico and take it to the cartel, no matter what Mexico says. It's sincere about stopping it. And it appears with a little hints and things like that, and Hegseth releasing that, all they're doing is mentally preparing the United States for an all-out war with the Mexican cartel. Now, and also I'll remind you that all the weapons the cartels have up here, I think that if in fact that happens in Mexico, we're going to see some retaliatory efforts by the cartel here in this country. So
I think that'll probably happen. In the cartels. The cartels are preparing as well. I've been hearing reports that of course they arrested those 29 leaders of the various cartels, trying to, how does the term go? Cut the head off the snake, something along those lines. But I'm hearing that the cartels right now have shuttered, most of their drug factories, and they're hiding their stash of weapons, and they're definitely preparing for the war that's coming. And a lot of them, you have to wonder, are they sneaking in? There are still places where people can sneak in to the United States across our southern border. Are a lot of them sneaking in here to avoid what's coming?
Hell, they're already here.
Oh, they certainly are, by the millions.
Metaphor. You just made a metaphor about cutting the head off the snake. In the desert, we ate rattles. I guess I shouldn't say this. Anyway, I said anyway. I just got yelled at. We dined on rattlesnake every night at Chow because rattlesnakes are everywhere in the desert, right? I did not know until years into it that the rattlesnake in Arizona is a protective species.
Right.
Well, let me just say about protective species. There's no shortage of rattlesnakes in the desert. Now, back to your metaphor, cut the head off the snake. We would bring the snake or snakes into the camp and cut their heads off, right? they were still dangerous. We had to cut the heads off the snakes outside of camp and bury them, because if you cut the head off the snake right there on the spot, that snake head will still bite you. So even if you cut the head off a snake for a time period, they're still dangerous.
I've heard that.
There's your metaphor of the day. I got to get to work. I got some meetings to attend to. We met last weekend, Washington Guard, met with the Israeli ambassador, got some inside information. Once I get thoroughly debriefed, we can talk about that next Wednesday from the Israeli point of view. And remember, if you join the Washington Guard, you're not alone anymore. So WashingtonGuard.com or patriots@WashingtonGuard.com. Love you guys. Allison, hang in there, baby. Find out, check on that salary for me, will you please? And have a good day. I guess I'm going to go shovel snow. I am out of here.
Thank you, Colonel Joe Adams, for joining us today. That's Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. I hope you have a fantastic day, Colonel Adams. So happy to have him join us and always learn something new from Colonel Adams. What a wonderful person to have on our team, right? And yeah, I do worry about the potential war with the cartels, and I worry about the attacks that could potentially happen here in our own country. I think something's coming. What it is, I don't know. We know that the cartels have surface-to-air missiles. They have RPGs. They have dirty bombs, allegedly. They have training from ISIS and other terror organizations. We know they're here in our country. And when we start going after the cartels, it's not as if they're just going to stop being cartel members. They're not just going to stop manufacturing drugs and trafficking. It's just not going to happen. So we've just got to see where things go. And it's kind of a scary thought. I don't think anybody should be fearful yet. We're not there yet, but we'll see what happens, and then we'll have to see how things look like and play out in our own communities. And will that affect us here and not just across the southern border? And then we got to start thinking about, well, how can that escalate to something else? We go into Mexico, and right now we have the permission from Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum? And right now we have her, Sheinbaum, we have her permission, but how does it go? And let's just say innocent people are caught up in the mix, and some Mexican citizens, innocent people, end up getting killed. Will that happen? I think we'll do everything we can to prevent that from happening. We've already mapped out the cartels. We know where their drug houses are. We know where they're manufacturing fentanyl and other harmful drugs. We know where their weapon caches are. So obviously we're going to go after those things first. And they know, they're not stupid. They know. And so they're preparing. All this is happening right now while we're talking. They're preparing for war. And what that will look like, none of us can know. We'll just have to see what happens when it happens and see how much support we have from the Mexican government. How many of them are corrupt? What's going to happen there? And we'll just have to wait and see. That's all we can do on so many issues. We just have to wait and see. And so a lot of other things I want to get to. We've been talking so much about the Epstein files. On Monday's show, of course, I didn't have a show yesterday. On Monday, we were talking about how Pam Bondi, Attorney General Pam Bondi, had that goal. Remember, she told the FBI, Southern New York District Court, that they had to release the Epstein files. She expected them on her desk on Friday morning at 8 a.m. And then we never really heard anything much more about it. I assumed that she didn't end up getting those files. I assumed that absolutely nothing happened. And now we know that, in fact, by 8 a.m. Friday morning, a truck had pulled up and they had unloaded a massive number, not only files, but physical evidence, so much information that they're sorting through. And I'm going to play this quick video of Pam Bondi talking about exactly that.
We all did. And the FBI handed over a couple hundred pages of documents. But, Sean, I gave them a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything. And a source had told me where the documents were being kept. Southern District of New York, shock. So we got them all by, hopefully all of them, Friday at 8 a.m., thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Cash is also, now that we have Cash here, it's a game changer, of course, and Cash is going to, Director Patel is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all of those documents.
Okay, I want to be clear because I think people got frustrated because they were expecting more. You were expecting more, and you didn't find out less than 24 hours before the release. You got a whistleblower that confirmed that there were way more documents that they were supposed to turn over, and then you found out just before that.
Well, sure. And you're looking at these documents going, these aren't all the Epstein files. You know, there were flight logs, there were names and victims' names. And we're going, where's the rest of the stuff? And that's what the FBI had turned over to us. And so a source said, whoa, all this evidence is sitting in the Southern District of New York.
Yeah.
So based on that, I gave them the deadline, Friday at 8, a truckload of evidence arrived. It's now in the possession of the FBI. Cash is going to get me and himself, really, a detailed report as to why all these documents and evidence had been withheld. And, you know, we're going to go through it as fast as we can, but go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims of Epstein, because there are a lot of victims.
Well, you had identified in phase one over 254.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, is that the only thing that would be redacted? Will everything else be made public that you get in your possession?
Yeah, the FBI hasn't had, obviously, they haven't looked at the thousands of pages of documents that they've just received Friday.
Yeah.
But Cash has a team going through them, and it's always about protecting the victim. But you know what?
It's always about protecting the victim, but, you know, are we ever going to see those names? I don't know. I just don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We'll just have to wait and see. You know, they're combing through the files. It's a lot of files to comb through. I am so glad that they had received them. And Allison says, James Dennehy, top agent at the Southern District of New York, resigned. No, he was fired, Allison. He did not resign. He was fired. Well, they forced his resignation, I should say. He had absolutely no choice, and he said was not given a reason why. He was just told, one of those situations, you either resign or we fire you. Kind of the same thing, right? And we all know why. And you know what about James Dennehy? Do you know, just a month before Donald Trump was inaugurated, he sent an email to everyone within the Southern District of New York system and told them all, do not cooperate with the Trump administration. That's why he was fired. You know, maybe we should call him and let him know exactly why that happened. He told them, do not comply with any of their orders. But it's more than Epstein. It's more than Epstein. It's not just Epstein. Guess what else they hold? They have the Anthony Weiner, all of the laptop information. They have the case files on Seth Rich. Remember Seth Rich, of course, being murdered. And no one has any answers, very close to the Clinton family. And I'll tell you, the Seth Rich story is going to be growing because the AG office is also asking, where are the Seth Rich files? We want to see these files. And so far, they are refusing to hand over any of the files about Seth Rich. Will we ever know? I want to know what's on Weiner's laptop. We just talked about that, 2 weeks ago, a week ago? I can't remember, about all of the evidence that's on there. And what's crazy is that we're being told that the Epstein files have never been looked at by the FBI, that the FBI has not looked at them. They've been held at the Southern District of New York, that no one has looked at them. I'm sure Maureen Comey has looked at them, as Allison also pointed out to us on Monday. I am absolutely sure that they have looked at these documents. They know exactly the names. They've already removed the most important names. Come on now. Do you really think that the Southern District of New York held all of these files and didn't retract the information that was most important before they handed the files over? I am sure they did. I hope that if we find out that's the case, I hope they get prosecuted. There's going to be some names that were at the top of this list that we'll just never know. I hope we at least get some names, but I don't think we'll truly ever know. I think we just might as well break it to ourselves that we're really never going to know who these names are. And I'll tell you, he was forced to resign, and for good reason, absolutely for good reason. And it's really unfortunate. And Cash Patel, of course, knee deep in files and evidence. So we'll see what's there. We'll see what's not there. And, there's a good possibility that the FBI may seek charges against some of these people who were named by witnesses. And if they do seek any type of charges against these people, we'll probably know the names, but we probably won't know a lot of the details, because then, of course, it will be an active investigation, and then we'll never know. All we can do is just sit, and we do a lot of sitting and waiting, don't we? Lots of sitting and waiting, but we will soon find out. And, another thing that's kind of making its way around the news, most of you know who Andrew Tate is. I've played a lot of his video clips here over the time. I consider him, or did consider him, a good patriot. He always has a lot of good information. And he was in, was it Puerto Rico? I can't recall where he was. He was in another area, and he was being investigated for sex trafficking, prostitution, a lot of different charges against minors. And so he and his brother left that area because he said that they were attacking him because he was a Trump supporter, because he was a conservative. Well, he ended up in Florida, he and his brother, and now the Attorney General in Florida has announced that they are also seeking to press charges against Andrew Tate and his brother against human trafficking, crimes against minors, prostitution, and so on. And, I remember when this case, we talked about it here quite some time ago. I remember when this case first started, coming about, I thought, man, another person persecuted for being a conservative. But now here he is in the state of Florida. I consider the state of Florida and the Attorney General there, one of us. And yet they're still going after Andrew Tate and his brother for all of these charges. They're conducting an investigation right now. Then it makes you start really backtracking a little bit, like, really, maybe there was really something to this. And if there was, then we'll find out. We'll hear all of the charges. We'll see if there's a conviction. Of course, innocent until proven guilty, but I have a hard time believing that the Attorney General in Florida is persecuting Andrew Tate and his brother, over their politics. So we'll see how this plays out. But I think that's going to be a big blow to conservatives when it happens, because here's a person that has spoken out so much on our behalf, and someone who I think so many of us looked to for information, and was a good person as far as had a lot of data, a lot of new information for us. And we'll see. A lot of you probably have absolutely no idea who Andrew Tate is, but you'll be hearing a little bit more of him in the news, that's for sure. And so some of the other things going on with the situation in Ukraine is, I was talking earlier before Colonel Joe Adams joined us about how Donald Trump is easing the sanctions against Russia, while at the same time Canada is threatening to shut off our power grid. They're talking about, some of the things they supply to us. Now, let's not forget that Canada, their pipeline, they have no way to transport. I think is it petroleum, natural gas? I know they have a pipeline that has to come through the United States. So for them to go from east to west, their pipeline has to come down through the United States and back up into Canada. So I think they need to be careful with their threats, because we're probably not going to fall for that. We talked earlier about those tariffs against Canada, of course. And, some of the other things going on with Ukraine is, of course, not only did we cut off aid from Ukraine, but we've banned the UK from sharing any of our data, any of our military intelligence with Ukraine. Now, whether they'll honor that agreement, I don't know. I would hope they would, or otherwise they would be committing in a way an act of war against the United States. So things are getting pretty serious with Donald Trump going against Ukraine. And I think that what he's trying to do by cutting off the aid, cutting off any type of intelligence, military intelligence going into Ukraine, I think he's trying to force Zelensky to make a deal. I think that he wants peace. I think that there's a couple of different things going on here. Not only does Donald Trump want to create a peace deal simply because we need to end this war for so many different reasons, but he's also doing it for his legacy. He wants to go down in history, of course, as a president who ended this major conflict where so many, well over 1 million lives lost, probably closer to 2 million troops lost between Russia and Ukraine. And, of course, he wants that to go down as part of his legacy. There's a lot that's behind what's going on right now. And are we going to be able to get, that mineral deal out of Zelensky? I don't know. He's going to continue to tell America and Donald Trump that in order for him to sign this deal, he wants this guarantee of safety, and that we're just not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to fall into that trap, because the minute we do, once again, the minute we do, and then something happens and the ceasefire's broken, and then all of a sudden, Russia sends some missiles over that hits some of these peacekeeping, folks coming over from Britain, or the British troops or the French troops. And guess what's going to happen? We're going to be drawn into this big, ugly war with them, which is the absolute last thing we want. Mr. Parnell, they are saying he can flip the governor race. This is all Ron is trying to get his wife elected. I did not know about that. Allison says, I believe in time we will see names. I hope you're right. I hope we see some names. I am personally not convinced of it. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I would like to see it happen, but I don't know. I know Donald Trump, he's got a lot of things on his plate right now, asking for $7 billion back from the Taliban. Remember when we had that withdrawal with Biden and we left, of course, all of our equipment there? We do that a lot, don't we? Obama did the same thing, of course, in Iraq. And then we have done the same thing under Joe Biden in Afghanistan. And of course, the Taliban's like, no, sorry, it's ours. They're running around, with our uniforms, with our weapons, with our equipment, and we can't do a darn thing about it. In the meantime, remember when they said, oh, it's the new Taliban? It's new. They're the new Taliban. Everything's going to be different now. The Biden administration said nobody ever calls them out for that. When it comes to terrorism, what I would really like to know is why is it that the Democrat Party always supports terrorism? I just don't understand it. It's almost laughable, as sad as it is. Why do they always support terrorism? Think about that. They supported terrorism in Afghanistan. They supported terrorism in Iraq. They supported terrorism in Syria. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And it's always the new terrorists. Obama, when he referred to the other branch of Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra is the Syrian branch of Al-Qaeda, same group, same people. And he referred to them as, oh, they're moderate terrorists, just moderate. We'll fund them, we'll train them, we'll do all these things for these people. And of course, they ended up running our special operations into Turkey, threatening to murder them, of course. So that operation didn't work out too well. But like we were talking about earlier, when it comes to Elon Musk and the statement that he made, I'm glad that somebody on the comment line brought that up, because it is such an important statement when you think about it, that here we have a situation where Elon Musk gives an interview. And I don't know what you think about Elon Musk. I think he's very straightforward. I think he tells it as it is, good or bad. He says it is what it is, and that's that. And like he said in that interview, that there's so much corruption that if he revealed all of it, they would kill him. And I'm hearing more and more reports about people saying, Donald Trump can only do so much because there are still deep state forces controlling this country, and that Donald Trump can only go so far, because he knows, allegedly, that if he goes further than this, whatever limit is, that they will take him out. They've tried a couple of times, were not successful, but trust me, if they really wanted to take him out at this point in time, they would find a way. They wouldn't care what the American people thought. They would find a way. They wouldn't be hiring this Roush guy, or whatever that was, Thomas Crooks in Pennsylvania. They would go after the big guns. There are ways of doing things. And I think that they're all a little bit worried about what could potentially happen. And I think Elon Musk is right, that if we ever knew all of the corruption that really took place, I don't think we as a country would ever be able to wrap our heads around it. We'd never get past it. And I really think that person, a lot of it is Obama, because when they talk about all of this money going out, no one ever talks about Obama. No one. Have you noticed that? No one talks about him. His name is never mentioned. It kind of reminds me in a way of the Epstein case, that Epstein trafficked all of these women, boys, girls, to these clients, but we don't hear the client's name. Well, Joe Biden and the Biden crime family were able to commit all types of different crimes, most of them monetarily, of course, and Obama's name is never mentioned, but he was the president when all this happened. All of this stuff going on in Ukraine, we know that we caused instability in Ukraine. We replaced their government. We infiltrated their government in all levels. We talked about that on Monday. And yet Obama's name is never mentioned, but Obama was president in 2014 and in the years leading up to this situation taking place, but his name is never mentioned. And I read an interesting story, which I think I shared with some of you maybe a week or so ago, and that Obama, I'm reading this story on Telegram, and it was from a channel that I respect and I think tells the truth. And somebody was on there saying, and I'll, and I have a video of it. I'll have to play that. I thought maybe I did. I don't know if I did or didn't. The shows kind of blend together for me, but it was somebody who works in the United States government, and they said, I'm probably going to get killed for talking about this, but Obama is actually a CIA operative, that he truly is from Kenya. He's not an American. And that, all of these things that we said he did, from going to school, from being a professor, that it's all just part of the charade, of his character, which is, of course, they said his CIA operative name was Renegade. And so when Obama stepped into the scene, they said that they all referred to him as Renegade. That was his CIA name. And, then all of a sudden, the deep state decided they wanted him to run for president. That really his original goal was just all of these different operations and, going on around the country, a lot of it causing chaos and instability. And if you know Obama's history, he started out, in the Chicago area in a company called Public Allies. Public Allies is a group kind of like AmeriCorps, which of course is the Clintons own AmeriCorps. And it's the same thing. They're heavily funded by the government is Public Allies, heavily funded by the government is AmeriCorps. And so we have Obama in Chicago, and of course, Michelle also on the board, Obama and Michelle on the board, the Chicago office of Public Allies. Well, what Public Allies is and they're still around. You don't hear much about them anymore. You didn't hear much about them back then either. But Public Allies was a group. Remember how Obama always said, and I've got this on video, he definitely said it, that he would like to create an army of civilians that is equally armed and is equally funded as the United States military. And that's exactly what he tried to do with Public Allies. They operate very much in military style. They have bunkers, but their goal is to create chaos and instability. They'll go around and get people to sign petitions or activists and that type of thing. But he made a lot of money as part of that group. And so I was told that through this channel that his original place in our country was to cause chaos and instability in our cities, a lot like, a George Soros, type situation, which I have no doubt that's probably who funds a lot of these operations. And that all of a sudden they decided, he was trained from a very young age to be a smooth talker and to be able to give these great speeches because it was all part of a facade. And I really think that it's probably true. And I think they're all scared of Obama. I know that may sound crazy to a lot of you, but I think there's a reason why Obama's name is never mentioned. Think about that. It's never mentioned by anyone. I've never heard Elon Musk mention Obama's name. Not that I can think of. You said all this stuff with the USAID. I call them, you said nothing. I haven't heard Obama's name one time mentioned. When they talk about, kickbacks, spending, fraud, mishandling of money going back for a really long time, nobody ever mentioned Obama's name. And I think there's a reason for that. It's kind of sinister, but I think there's a reason why that is the case. And let's see here. Jay says they will say anything to try and justify their stupidity. Jay, or they haven't found a connection to Obama. Oh, they have found the connections. I can assure you of that. Joe Fry says Trump saving Obama for last. I don't know. I've never heard Trump really talk about Obama. He goes after Joe Biden. Doesn't say much about Obama. Joe says they have the connection with Obama, Hillary, and Biden. So be patient and enjoy the movie. I hope you're right. I hope we find out some additional information. But, when you think about it, they just don't even try, do they? Remember that whole debacle about of course, Obama's birth certificate, and then everything just stops. People stop talking about it. You don't hear anything more about it. And I think it's probably a big sham, against the American people. I really do. I think it's all just a big sham against the American people. I don't know that we're ever going to find out anything. I really don't. I don't know if we'll ever find out anything about some of these situations. And we just got to hold tight, do our own research, because we know, don't we? We definitely know. There's a lot of deep state stuff still going on. They still have a grip on our country, and they still have a grip over, being censored. Still on Facebook, I'm still being censored. I shared a post that Judge Janine Pirro had shared, where she had talked about the kickbacks that a lot of folks in Congress received, some Democrats, some Republicans. And I shared that. And of course, I got a big zing from Facebook the other day. They're like, oh, that's lies. Our fact checker said that's not true. I'm like, I'm so tired of fact checkers. And then they get me for unoriginal content. I'm like, who decides what's original and unoriginal content? And now I think this is a bigger issue than probably most people think. Facebook has announced that if you have any live content, live video, they're going to delete it after 30 days. So if you yourself have live content, if you've taken family videos or, whatever important videos you have, Facebook's going to start deleting them. So that means that any live content on Facebook is only going to have a lifespan of 30 days, which to me, I'm thinking, okay, well, if it's family photos or videos and different things you're doing, 30 days, that's fine. But there's a lot of really good information that is shared on social media that will be lost. They'll be gone forever. And I think that there's a reason why they're doing that. It may seem innocent, like, oh, they're just trying to save data space or something. And by deleting all this live content, I think there's a lot more to it. I think it has a lot to do with almost like erasing history, because people have shared some really good stuff on social media, on Facebook. I've got a lot of really good videos that I've watched there. Some I've shared, some have been shared with me that talks about a lot of very important issues regarding not only, our lives, but our country, COVID, different kinds of things. They'll all be gone. Everything that's over 30 days is being erased from their database. And so I've already started the process of backing up all of my live content. They're at least giving you that option. So it's going to take days for mine to back up, but it's all going over to my Dropbox, and it's pretty crazy. Let's see, Darlene. Good morning, Darlene. Well, he does call him Biden, which is pretty funny and also the truth. Stacy, I've never heard his name either. That's a crazy point I've never thought of. Yeah, they don't mess around with Obama. They don't. They do not mess around with Obama. And to some degree, they don't talk about the Clintons much either. In Donald Trump this term, I have not really heard him talk about Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton. There's a lot going on, and a lot of nefarious stuff going on behind the scenes that I don't think any of us know about. And the corruption that has taken place, and think, this didn't just start under Biden's term. All this corruption, all this mismanagement of files, it didn't start under under Joe Biden. It was happening all the time. It was probably happening during Trump's last term too. I would like to see how far back it goes and how much money has been taken over the years, not just under the Biden administration, but let's go back to the beginning and find out how long has this been mismanaged? How long has the stealing been taking place? I would really like to know, and I hope someday we find out. But anyway, that's about all I have to say for today. Good morning, Linda. You joined late. Snowing where you live. I'm right next to a window. It's not snowing here. When I was talking to Colonel Adams, he was saying it's like a blizzard out at his house in Franklin County. And I thought, gosh, it's like 60 degrees here. It's not. It's 42 degrees at my house right now, and we're supposed to have a high of 52 here. I don't know if we're going to see snow or not over this way, but I guess we'll find out. I hope not. I'm tired of snow. I know it's going to be pretty darn windy today. People are talking about the low pressure system that's here and how it could potentially cause you some health issues, joint problems, and pain and all that good stuff. I mean, come on, why not? But we haven't even talked about weather manipulation in a while. Donald Trump hasn't talked about weather manipulation. We're going to have to get into that someday too. See if they're planning to tackle, these chemtrails and that type of thing. We don't hear a lot about that, do we? But, one subject at a time, right? Donald Trump's probably got a list a mile long of all of the different things we all have to tackle. And I'm sure it's on the list. Jay says snowing there. It is not snowing here. And Sherry says, you got about an inch. I don't know. Maybe I live in some weird bubble. Not a darn thing going on here with the weather. And Joe says, wait till the information regarding the U.S. coordination of biological laboratories and research institutes in Ukraine, the connection between Obama, Hillary, and Biden will come out. I hope it does. I hope it does. I hope we know everything. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me today. I've got to run. I've got work to do. But I do hope you guys all have a really good day. I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Lots more to talk about tomorrow. And cannot wait. Cannot wait. Lots going on in the news cycle. Lots more we'll be hearing about today. So I hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you then. Have a good night.